Ray had once imagined his life would be quiet. He had grown up in a small human settlement on the edge of a frontier world, far from the bustle of the inner sphere. His work as a security guard aboard a merchant vessel had never promised glory. It only offered steady pay, long hours, and the occasional rough encounter with smugglers or pirates. He had never expected his path to cross with a royal figure of a distant alien empire. He certainly had not expected to become a symbol of loyalty to a people who knew little of humans. Yet fate had a way of pulling the unwilling into storms they never believed they would face. The vessel he guarded had been transporting rare machinery to a neutral station. The job sounded simple. The merchant captain dealt in legal goods. The journey passed through monitored space. Ray had planned to read in his off hours and sleep the rest of the time. But 3 days into the trip, the captain received a coded message that forced them to reroute. A distress signal pulsed from a drifting diplomatic ship. It bore the crest of the Lumarian Empire, an ancient star nation known for its shimmering cities and strict customs. Their envoys rarely traveled through human corridors. The captain hesitated, then ordered a rescue. Law required it. Morality demanded it. The diplomatic vessel hung in silence when they approached. No lights, no motion, no response. It was Ray and 2 others who boarded first. They swept the main corridor, finding scorch marks and fractured panels. Something had attacked them. Something had boarded. A few steps farther, they found bodies of Lumarian guards, their silver armor cracked. The sight of their fallen protectors chilled Ray. Lumarians seldom allowed themselves to be caught unprepared. Whoever had struck them had done so with intent. They found survivors deeper in the vessel. 2 were wounded. 1 was unconscious. And 1, surprisingly, was a child. She did not appear human. Her skin held a soft glow like polished stone. Her eyes shimmered with shifting colors. A faint crest marked her forehead. Ray did not need to know alien genealogy to recognize someone important. The child clutched a ceremonial band. He had seen enough cultural lectures during training to identify what it meant. Only one who held royal blood carried such a band. She was a princess. The survivors begged for safe transport. The merchant captain agreed. Ray volunteered to stay near the princess. It was not heroism. He believed the attackers might still be lurking. When the merchant ship pulled away with the diplomat secured, Ray hoped the ordeal would end. But when they arrived at the neutral station, danger found them again. A hidden vessel decloaked near the docking bay. Alarms howled. Ray rushed toward the diplomat's quarters. He arrived moments before armored intruders forced their way in. The princess stood behind her protectors. The Lumarian guards were weakened. Ray saw the danger with sharp clarity. Laser fire flashed. He lunged forward without thinking. He placed himself between the princess and the nearest attacker. The shot hit him. Pain surged. He kept his stance. Another blast came. He felt the force shudder through his armor. Still, he did not move. His one thought was simple. The child must not fall. The attackers charged. Ray pushed the princess toward cover. He struck at the intruders with his baton, fighting like a man possessed. Reinforcements arrived moments later. The invaders retreated. Ray collapsed as medics rushed in. His last memory before darkness took him was the princess gripping his hand, her luminous eyes wide with fear. When Ray awoke, he found himself aboard a different ship. The chamber glowed with soft blue light. The bed felt weightless. A Lumarian healer stood beside him. She explained he had been brought to the Imperial cruiser, sent to retrieve the princess. His injuries had been severe. He had nearly died. Yet the princess had refused to leave without him. Ray absorbed the words slowly. He was no hero. He had only acted on instinct. But to the Lumarians, the act carried deeper meaning. Their culture regarded bodily protection of a royal heir as sacred. The healer left. Moments later, the princess entered with 2 guards. She smiled in a shy, uncertain way. Ray sat up, wincing. She approached, holding the ceremonial band. She murmured something in her own language. The guards translated. She thanked him for giving his body to shield her. She vowed she would not forget him. Ray felt awkward, unsure of how to respond. He simply told her any decent person would have done the same. But the guards exchanged glances. In Lumarian society, such a statement held great weight. The ship soon reached the Lumarian capital. Ray wished to go home, but protocol demanded he appear before the queen. The palace was vast, built of crystal-like structures that bent light into gentle patterns. Ray walked between towering pillars with a sense of unreality. He wore simple clothes provided by their attendants. His steps echoed. The guards led him to the throne chamber. The queen stood at the center. Her presence radiated authority. Her skin shimmered with the same luminous quality as her daughter. Her eyes held the sharp clarity of a ruler accustomed to command. The princess ran to her and embraced her. The queen touched the child's hair, then looked at Ray. Her gaze pierced him. She spoke. The translator repeated her words. She declared that his act had bound him to the royal line by ancient tradition. In their culture, one who freely placed their body between harm and a royal heir earned a place in the queen's domain. His life now belonged to the royal house. Ray froze. He had not expected this. He tried to explain he was a simple guard. He tried to insist his act was not a pledge. But the queen dismissed his objections with calm firmness. She said truth was measured by action, not by word. He had acted with absolute loyalty at a moment when none could compel him. That made him part of them. Ray felt torn. He respected their gratitude, but he wanted his old life back. The queen seemed to sense this. She stepped closer. She spoke with softer tone. She told him he would not be treated as a servant. He would be honored. He would be granted position, residence, and respect. But he could never leave without royal consent. He had become, in essence, claimed. In the days that followed, Ray lived in a guest quarter within the palace. The Lumarians treated him with near reverence. Servants bowed. Guards saluted. Officials visited with gifts. The princess visited him daily, eager to learn about humans. She sat beside him and asked questions. He showed her simple human games and told stories of frontier life. She watched him with wide fascination. Ray felt himself softening toward her. She was kind, bright, and curious. He began to understand why the queen valued her so deeply. But the sense of being bound lingered. He walked through palace gardens and looked at distant stars, wondering how far away his old world felt. The queen summoned him often. She asked about human customs. She studied his manner. She watched him with interest that made him uneasy. There was no malice in her, but there was intention. She saw him not only as savior, but as symbol. A human who risked himself for their princess was rare. Some factions within the empire mistrusted humans. His presence changed that narrative. One evening, he attended a formal gathering. Lumarian nobles filled the hall with soft songs and quiet conversation. The queen approached him. She wore ceremonial bands that cast shifting colors across her form. She asked him to walk with her. He followed, though apprehension coiled within him. She led him to a balcony overlooking the capital's glowing towers. She spoke of the empire's challenges. Rivals circled them. Shadows gathered beyond mapped space. She said unity was essential. She believed Ray's bond with the princess held symbolic power that could strengthen ties between their people and his own. She told him she intended to announce publicly that he was under her protection. The claim would be formal. His life would be tied permanently to the royal house. Ray inhaled slowly. He told her he respected her nation. He cared for the princess. But he still belonged to humanity. He wished to return. The queen turned to face him. Her eyes held both warmth and steel. She said the act he had performed on the station could not be undone. In Lumarian law, he had sealed a connection. To walk away would dishonor the princess, shame the royal line, and disrupt fragile diplomacy. He realized then that the queen did not only claim him out of gratitude. She claimed him out of necessity. Over the following weeks, Ray learned more about Lumarian customs. Ancient stories described guardians who offered their lives willingly for heirs. Such guardians were welcomed as kin. They held status just below the royal family. They lived within the palace, trained with elite forces, and advised rulers. The queen intended Ray to join this lineage. She introduced him to mentors who taught him Lumarian combat methods and cultural etiquette. At first, he participated reluctantly. Then he found purpose in the lessons. He discovered that their traditions held beauty as well as rigidity. He grew stronger, wiser, more focused. The princess often watched his training. She clapped when he succeeded. She offered encouragement when he stumbled. Ray saw the trust she placed in him. The bond between them deepened. He no longer viewed himself as prisoner. He began to see himself as guardian, yet the thought of never returning to humanity still haunted him. One day, he approached the queen. He bowed as Lumarian custom required. He asked for clarity. Was there any path that allowed him to honor his bond, yet also visit his old world? The queen considered carefully. She said tradition prevented him from leaving during the princess's vulnerable years. But when Sage,